chant Namo Tassa together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Morning. This is the first time I'm in the Buddhist library, and I seldom come to Singapore to give talks. Today the topic is the Noble Eightfold Path, and this is the most important part of the Buddha's teachings. Sometimes certain books say there are 84,000 Dharma doors. As far as liberation is concerned, there's only one Dharma door, that is the Noble Eightfold Path. So this Noble Eightfold Path consists of 8 factors. In Chinese we translate it as Pa Chung Tao, but actually the Pali is arya, magga. So, if you translate it properly, arya is Ren, magga is Ba Chi Tao, like the Chung Chi Pu, the Chi, 8-factored path. So, the first factor is right view. 2 days ago, I gave a talk on right view. So, I won't talk so much about right view today because there's not so much time, but I'll summarize. Now, what is right view? Right view, there are 2 types of right view in the Buddha's teachings. One is worldly right view, one is arya right view. Worldly right view is basically understanding karma vipaka. Karma vipaka is intentional action and its result. Sometimes people translate it as cause and effect, but that's not a good translation. Because cause, there is worldly cause and karma. Karma is intentional action. So there must be intention behind your action, then only is it karma. So for example, if you are driving on the road and a small boy runs across the road and you hit and kill the boy, because there is no intention on your part, so there is no karma, but there is cause and effect. As a result of killing that boy, you might be attacked by some people, and you might get called up to court, sued and all that. So there is cause and effect, but there's no karma vipaka. So when we do something intentionally, it can be through the 3 doors of body, speech and mind. And whenever you do something intentionally, you have to bear the consequences. And vipaka is the consequence. So karma vipaka means the intentional action and the consequence of it. So to understand this and to believe that there is such a thing as having to pay for our karma. So if you do skillful karma by benefiting others, you will be happy as a result. But if you harm others, create evil karma, then you have to suffer for it. Then worldly right view also means understanding that there are planes of rebirth, not that after you pass away there's nothing. So if you understand there are planes of rebirth that await you, happy destination as well as woeful destinations of rebirth, then you are careful that the karma you create is skillful karma, not unskillful karma, so that you are reborn in a happy destination of rebirth. And then thirdly, you believe that there are holy men who practice the holy path and attain various stages of aryahood. So basically there is worldly karma, right view. And aryan right view is defined as understanding the Four Noble Truths, understanding that life is suffering, dukkha, or unsatisfactory. This word dukkha can be said to be suffering, but a problem is a lot of us find it hard to accept that life is suffering because we have a good life. But the Buddha, he has the divine eye, so he can see that there are woeful planes of rebirth, and because there are woeful planes of rebirth, he said that life is really sorrowful. If you were to ask a wealthy person who's living a good life, or if you were to tell him that life is suffering, he cannot accept it because he does not see that life is suffering. On the other hand, if you were to ask somebody, for example, in Africa or in India or Indonesia, some poor person, and then he will tell you that life is suffering. So the Buddha said there are 5 planes of rebirth, 2 happy destinations of rebirth and 3 woeful destinations of rebirth. The 2 happy destinations of rebirth are the human plane and the heavens, and the 3 woeful planes are the ghost realm, the animal realm, and the hell realm. So even in our human plane, which is supposed to be a happy destination of rebirth, we can see that life is not really that happy. There are many things you want in the world you cannot get. And even when you get the things that you want, you don't seem to be satisfied. You're satisfied for a short while, and later you crave for this and you crave for that. And sometimes those that you love are separated from you. And sometimes those that you dislike, they always come near you to give you suffering. And the Buddha said, in short, our body and our mind, the 5 aggregates of attachment, give us suffering. The body you can see, year by year we grow old, and we become sick, and then the greatest suffering is when death comes. And cause of suffering, the Buddha said, is craving. When we are happy with something, we want to cling to it, we don't want it to change. But the greatest characteristic of the world is impermanence, anicca. There's nothing that ever stands still, everything is in a flux, changing all the time. So whatever gives us pleasant feeling, we want it again and again. And because we cannot get it permanently, we suffer. And then the third noble truth is that there is a state of cessation of suffering called nibbana, where the 3 poisons, greed, hatred and delusion, are eliminated. And the 4th noble truth is that there is a path to the ending of dukkha, which is the noble eightfold path. So So if you understand the basics of the Four Noble Truths, then you have the Aryan right view. And when you have the Aryan right view, it also encompasses the worldly right view, Lokya Samaditi. Aryan right view is Lokuttara Samaditi. Now, why is right view important? Firstly, you have a worldly right view because you understand the working of karma vipaka, and you understand that there are woeful planes of rebirth. You will be careful that the karma you create is skillful karma, so that your next rebirth is into a happy destination of rebirth, not a woeful destination of rebirth. But worldly right view doesn't guarantee that you will always get a happy destination of rebirth. This lifetime you have worldly right view, the next life you have a happy destination of rebirth. But after that you've forgotten all the Dharma you learned, and you will go on the round of rebirths. When you are on the round of rebirths, you go up and down, sometimes to a happy destination, sometimes to a woeful destination of rebirth. So definitely you will be born in the three woeful destinations again and again, which is very painful, full of suffering. So Aryan right view is more important. In the Anguttara Nikaya 9.20, in the sutta, the Buddha said a long time ago he was born as a Brahmin, and in that lifetime he did a lot of dana, offerings and charity. And the Buddha said, in spite of giving to so much to so many people, the merit was not very much, because there was not a single person with right view to receive the offering. In other words, there was not a single arya, noble person around. All were ordinary worldlings, putujana. So the implication of this sutta is that once you get right view, you are an arya. So it's very important to become an arya. You must get right view. If you don't have right view, you have not become an arya. And once you become an arya, then you will never regress. You will never be reborn into any one of the three woeful planes of existence. That's why it's so important to get right view. Once you get right view, you know you're never going to be reborn in the three woeful planes of existence. You'll only be reborn in the two happy destinations, either as a human being or as a deva or devi. And the sutta says even if you are born as a human being, you will have a lot of blessings. You will come back as a human being with a good life. You are born to a wealthy family, and you will have good looks, and you will have long life, a healthy, strong body, etc. So that's why it's so good to get Aryan right view. Now in the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 117, the Buddha says that if you practice Noble Eightfold Path, you must always enter by the first factor, right view. If you don't get right view, you have not entered on the Noble Eightfold Path. So you can see about 10 years ago, in Malaysia, in Penang, we had one lady who practiced meditation for 20 over years and was certified by her teacher to have been an arya already. And she was teaching meditation. And she was a very serious Buddhist. Every day she kept the 8 precepts. And whenever the school holidays came, she would shave off her hair and become a manchi for the school holidays. And she did this year after year. Then after 20 over years of practice, suddenly she gave up Buddhism and switched her religion. So all the effort, 20 over years of effort, all gone down the drain. Why? Because she did not get right view. once you get right view and you become a Sotapanna, you have unshakable faith in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha. So if you don't get right view, you still don't have the unshakable faith. Today you say you're a Buddhist, another day you give up that religion, switch your religion. So you can see here that right view is more important than meditation. Now how do we get right view or aryan right view? In the Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 43, it is stated that there are only two conditions for you to achieve right view. The first condition is the voice of another. The voice of another is very important. The second one is proper attention or careful attention, yoniso manasikara. So only somebody else teaching you the Dhamma, that's the only way you can get right view. If you meditate by yourself until doomsday, you're not going to get right view by yourself. That is why when the Buddha came to the world, after he was enlightened, he taught the Dhamma. He taught the Dhamma. And after he taught the Dhamma, people heard the Dhamma and Aryans started to appear in the world. So if the Buddha did not teach the Dhamma, people will meditate and meditate, and then they may get psychic powers. They may end up like Jesus Christ or some yogi with psychic powers. But they may not become an arya. So it's the Dhamma that helps us to get right view and become an arya. So remember the Noble Eightfold Path, you have to enter it through right view. That's the only way. And also in this Majjhima Nikaya Sutta 117, it says that the Noble Eightfold Path, the 8 factors are to be practiced one by one. Right view, once you get right view, that will bring you to the next factor, which is right thoughts. And right thoughts will bring you to right speech, and right speech will bring you to right action, which will bring you to right livelihood, which will bring you to right effort, which will bring you to right recollection, and finally right concentration. Now, coming back to this getting right view, listening to the Dhamma, somebody else teaching you the Dhamma. During the Buddha's days, there were no books, so somebody else have to teach you the Dhamma for you to get right view. But nowadays, we have the suttas, the Buddha's words in the Nikayas. So reading the Nikayas or reading the earlier suttas will have the same effect. So what type of Dhamma should we listen or should we study? The type of Dhamma that we should concentrate on to achieve right view is the earliest discourses of the Buddha, the original discourses of the Buddha. And all schools of Buddhism agree that the original discourses of the Buddha are found in the earliest 4 Nikayas, 4 collections of the Buddha's words. First one is the Digha Nikaya, long discourses of the Buddha. Then Majjhima Nikaya, medium length discourses of the Buddha. Samyutta Nikaya, topically grouped discourses of the Buddha. And Anguttara Nikaya, numerically arranged discourses of the Buddha. So these are the earliest Nikayas. We have a 5th Nikaya called the Khuddaka Nikaya. Khuddaka Nikaya means the minor collection or the small collection. It started off with 1 or 2 books, and that's why it's called the small collection. But monks started to add more and more books into this Nikaya, so that now Sri Lanka and Thailand recognize 15 books. But Myanmar in 1956, they added another 3 books to make it 18 books. And everyone knows that these 3 books are not the Buddha's words. And yet they felt that it was important enough to put it in. So from here you can see how the minor collection grew to become the major collection. So in this Khuddaka Nikaya, only about 6 books are reliable, in that they do not contradict the earliest 4 Nikayas. And these 6 books are the Dhammapada, Sutta Nipata, the Udana, Itivuttaka, Theragata, Therigata. I've written a book called Liberation, Relevance of Sutta Vinaya. I think the books and the CDs are somewhere here. You can get them. How this listening to the Dhamma is so important that the Buddha calls all of his disciples Savaka. Whether it is monastic disciples or lay disciples, all the Buddha's disciples are called Savaka. This word Savaka has been translated into Chinese as servant, hearers or listeners. So only if you listen to the Buddha's words and you understand, can you be called a disciple of the Buddha. Now, how do you know that you have right view? The Buddha says that a person who has right view has attained stream entry. When you get right view, you enter the stream, you become the first stage, arya, which is out of the 8 types of arya, the lowest is the first path attainer. There's a stream enterer. This first path attainer is a person who understands some basic Dharma about the Four Noble Truths and has achieved right view, so he attains this first path. Now the sutta says that after you attain the path comes from understanding, but understanding is not enough. After you understand, you have to study the Dhamma more and meditate and put the Dhamma into practice, and keep the moral conduct, listen to more suttas, meditate, practice charity, and over a period of time when your understanding deepens, and then this path will ripen and turn to fruit, so it becomes sotapanna. The first path after some time becomes fruit, sotapanna. But later books like the Abhidhamma, they say that once you achieve the path, immediately it turns to fruit. This is not what the sutta says. The sutta says that when you achieve the path, you have not eliminated the 3 factors. It takes more understanding, it takes more work. You have to work on it, and then that wisdom ripens, and then it turns to fruit. And when it turns to fruit, the 3 factors fall away. What are the 3 factors? One is doubt. Doubt about the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha. Another factor is Sila Bhatta Paramasa, clinging to rules and rituals. And the third factor is Sakaya Ditti, identity view. We like to identify ourselves with the body and the mind. You think this body and the mind is I or mine. But when you see impermanence, then you see that this body and the mind cannot be I and mine. This body is like a shell. So even though you understand that the body and the mind is not the self, but still you have a self. You have a self somewhere. It's only the Arahant who has finished his work, who has no self. Even all the other stages of aryahood, they still have the self. Only thing is, all the Aryans have eliminated Sakaya Ditti, identity view. You don't identify yourself with the body and your mind, even though you have a self, because you see impermanence in the body and the mind. What is impermanent cannot be the self. The Buddha always talk about anatta, that there is no atta in the world. Atta, although we translate it as self, you have to be very careful, because in the worldly sense, we have a self. We have a self. This is the conventional self. But that is not what the Buddha meant. What the Buddha meant by atta is something that is permanent, that is unchanging, a core, an essence that remains the same. If there is something that remains the same, then you can identify it as as yourself or something. But if everything is changing all the time, then whatever you say is yourself. After a while it changes, it's no more there, how can it be yourself? Yeah. But this more self, anatta, is very hard to see. Very hard to see because our mind is not developed. So we meditate to develop the mind to a higher level so that we see with a higher wisdom. Most people, we operate through the six senses. We know the world only through the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body and the mind. That's how we perceive the world. If you perceive the world only through your six senses, you're not going to have a very great wisdom. You have to transcend the six senses, develop your mind, then only you have the higher wisdom. So this Sakayaditi, you understand that since the body and the mind is impermanent, you cannot be yourself. So a person who has eliminated the three factors becomes a Sotapanna. And this Sotapanna, he has unshakable faith in the Buddha, he has unshakable faith in the Dharma, he has unshakable faith in the Sangha. And he has sometimes said to have the perfect Sila. But this perfect Sila is not the monks' 227 precepts or the Mahayana monks' 250 precepts or the Bhikkhunis' 348 precepts. It is the Aryan precepts. And the Aryan Sila are three factors in the Noble Eightfold Path. The three factors that comprise Sila is right speech, right action and right livelihood. So after I'll talk about that. So this Sotapanna, he has the unshakable faith in the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, and he has the Aryan Sila. Now the Buddha also said, once you become an arya, you are never reborn in the three woeful planes of existence. And the Buddha also said, once you become a Sotapanna or a stream enterer, you have a maximum of 7 more rebirths before you enter Nibbana. And these 7 more rebirths, you only either go up to the heavenly rebirth or human rebirth. Also, once you have a right view, you have seen the Dhamma, you have the Dhamma Chakku. Dhamma Chakku sometimes is translated as vision of the Dhamma, sometimes as the eye of the Dhamma. In other words, you have seen the Dhamma. Once you have seen the Dhamma, you become a changed man. Your attitude towards the world is changed. Previously, you were very worldly. You like to enjoy everything in the world. Slowly, you become more of a recluse. Keep more to yourself, you practice. You don't want to go to karaoke, you don't want to go to Genting Highlands, you don't want to go to casino, you don't want to go to the races, you don't want to go with your friends, happy hour and all that. You want to look for China girls and all that. So, people who notice your change, sometimes they think something wrong with this fellow. So, when you walk the spiritual path, it's a lonely path. Nobody wants to join you. You have to walk the path alone. So, if you don't have the courage, you don't have the understanding, it's very difficult to persevere because your friends will want you to join them. Yam sing, go here, go there. To practice the Dhamma more. And also another characteristic of the Sotapanna, the Buddha says, Sotapanna becomes independent of others in the Buddha's teaching. In other words, you don't look for a Ho Liao Su Hu anymore. People like to look for famous teachers. You know that your real teacher is the Buddha. The Buddha is gone, but his words are with us. The Buddha says, if you see the Dhamma, you see the Buddha. You see the Buddha, you see the Dhamma. So the Buddha's body is still with us, its words. So you rely on the Buddha. In Chinese we say, Pen Se Se Chiang Wo Ni Fo, original teacher is the Buddha. Now, unfortunately, not everybody who listens to the Dhamma becomes a Sotapanna. But it's also not that difficult. If you study the suttas and the Vinaya, you can see it's not that difficult to become a stream enterer. If you have certain good qualities in you. For example, when after the Buddha was enlightened, he would look for people to teach the Dhamma to. And usually he will look for people who have achieved the jhanas. Because if a person has achieved the jhanas, you are rid of the 5 hindrances. The Buddha says that we are deluded because we cannot see clearly. And the reason we cannot see clearly is because there are 5 hindrances that envelop us. In Chinese we say Wu Kai, cover us. So these 5 hindrances are sensual desire, ill will or anger, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. So these 5 things envelop us. But when we achieve a focused mind, one-pointedness of mind, these 5 hindrances fall away. It's as though the dark glasses have been removed from us, and then we can see more clearly. So the Buddha used to look for such people, and when he spoke the Dhamma to these people who had attained the jhanas, they understood and they attained various levels of arya. There was one time when the Buddha went to stay with 1,000 ascetics. They were called jatilas, matted hair ascetics, and they worshipped the fire, and they submerged themselves in the river 3 times in the morning and 3 times in the evening to wash away their sins. They had wrong views, but because they practiced jhana, I believe that the Buddha went to them. So the leader of these 1,000 ascetics, he probably had psychic power, so he thought that he was an arahant, and people also thought that he was an arahant. So the Buddha went to live with them for several weeks, and during the several weeks, slowly he showed his great psychic power to them, so that in the end they had such faith in him. And when they had faith in him, then the Buddha told the leader, Kasapa, you keep thinking you are an arahant, but you are not an arahant, and you are not walking the path to become an arahant. It was like a slap in his face. Nobody had challenged him like that. So when he contemplated, he realized that the Buddha's cultivation was higher than his. So he shaved off his long hair and became a disciple of the Buddha, a monk disciple. And the 999 followed suit. So after 1,000 of them had become his disciples, then only the Buddha taught them the Dhamma. And the Buddha spoke only one sutta called the Adita Pariyaya Sutta, the fire discourse. Because these people prayed to fire, and the Buddha used fire to attract their attention. The Buddha said that the world is on fire, the eye is on fire, the ear, the nose, the tongue, body and mind are on fire. What fire? Fire, greed, hatred and delusion. So when they heard this, they paid full attention. Slowly the Buddha led them to the topic of anatta, no self. And after preaching the sutta, because their mind was so clear, they understood just one sutta, all 1,000 of them became arahants. And after they became arahants, the Buddha brought them to Rajagaha, where King Bimbisara threw lunch dana for all of them. And then after the lunch dana, the Buddha gave a graduated discourse, a progressive discourse on the Four Noble Truths. Now the people of Rajagaha all came out to see the Arahants. And when the Buddha spoke this discourse, it is said 12 Nahutas of people attained stream entry. And the Vinaya books, commentaries, they say that 120,000 people attain stream entry. So you see, just listening to the Dhamma for the first time, these ascetics became Arahants. And these lay people listen to the Dhamma for the first time, they attain stream entry. So you see, that's a difference, if a person listens to say a particular sutta, if he has a very clear mind, having attained the 4 jhanas, he becomes an Arahant. But another person now who has not achieved jhana, one-pointedness of mind, he listens to the same Dhamma, he can only attain stream entry. So, you see here, this is not that difficult. And then there is a Sarakani Sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya. There was a layman called Sarakani who passed away. He was a long time lay disciple of the Buddha. And after he passed away, people asked the Buddha, where was Sarakani reborn? And the Buddha said, oh, Sarakani was a Sotapanna. He's gone for a good rebirth. And then when this news spread, there were some people who were not happy because they said that Sarakani used to drink some liquor. Lay people are supposed to keep the 5 precepts, and the 5th precept is a precept against liquor intoxicants. So because Sarakani drank some liquor, they doubted that Sarakani was a Sotapanna. So the news came back to the Buddha's ears. Then the Buddha said, why shouldn't Sarakani be a Sotapanna? He has taken refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma and Sangha for a long time. In other words, he has learned the Dhamma for a long time. Then the Buddha said something quite surprising. The Buddha said, look at these trees. These big trees, if I were to preach the Dhamma to them and they could understand my words, even the trees can become Sotapanna. Why not Sarakani? So we see here, the point here is that the Buddha says if he spoke Dhamma to the trees can become Sotapanna. So Sotapanna is achieved by listening to the Dhamma, not by meditation. This is a very important point. But meditation helps. If you meditate and you sharpen your mind, then it's much easier for you to understand the Dhamma. But the crucial factor is listening to the Dhamma. If you listen to the Dhamma, you can attain stream entry. But if you meditate only and not listen to the Dhamma enough, you are not going to attain stream entry. In the Vinaya books, we also find that one of the Buddha's disciples called Devadatta, he wanted to take over the Buddha's place as the leader of the Sangha. And in front of the assembly of monks, the Buddha kind of scolded him, said that he was not qualified to take over the Buddha's place. And he was so annoyed because the Buddha had disgraced him in front of so many people that he wanted to kill the Buddha. So he tried various ways to kill the Buddha. And one of the ways he tried was to ask the Prince Ajatasattu to give him a few, I think probably soldiers, a few men to do some work. So the prince provided him with a few men because this prince had a lot of faith in Devadatta. Devadatta, in the beginning, his cultivation was quite good. He had psychic powers. So Devadatta told the first man, you go into such and such a forest area. Samana Gautama is staying there. The Buddha's name during those days was Samana Gautama. Gautama was his surname. Samana is an ascetic. So he told the first man to go to that place and kill the Buddha and come back by a certain road. And after this man had gone, he told 2 men to wait for this man at a particular spot and kill this man and come back by another route. Then he told 4 men to wait to kill the 2. And he asked 8 men to kill the 4, and he asked 16 to kill the 8. So he planned out so well so that there's no evidence linking it to him. So the first man went to where the Buddha was. And he was surprised the Buddha was sitting there waiting for him. The Buddha, most of the time the Buddha meditates and doesn't know a lot of things that's happening in the world. A lot of devas protect the Buddha. So when something like this happens, it's not surprising if the devas will come and warn the Buddha. So the Buddha was sitting there waiting for him. So when he came near the Buddha, this guilty conscience made him tremble. So he threw away his weapons, he knelt before the Buddha and asked for forgiveness. The Buddha said, "Never mind, you sit down here, I will teach you the Dhamma." So that man sat down, and the Buddha taught him the Dhamma. He attained stream entry. And the Buddha said, "You don't go back by this road, 2 men are waiting for you, you go up another way." So he ran off. So these 2 men waited and waited and waited and couldn't wait, and they came, same thing happened, they came to the Buddha and they started to tremble also. And they also threw away their weapons, and the Buddha taught them the Dhamma. They also attained stream entry. 4 men came, also attained stream entry. 8 men, 16 men, all attained stream entry. So you see, it's not so difficult. But of course, you could have certain qualities. There is a sutta called the Samanyapala Sutta at the Digha Nikaya. This Ajatasattu that I just mentioned, he was a very ambitious man. He couldn't wait for his father to die to become the king. So he killed his father. And after he killed his father and he became the king, his mind was so troubled that night after night he couldn't sleep. And one night, it was a full moon night, he asked his physician to bring him to see a holy man. And the physician, Jivaka Kumarabhacha, brought him to see the Buddha. And he asked the Buddha certain questions like, what's the point of becoming a monk? What's the benefit of renouncing? And then Buddha explained to him, that's why it's called the Samanyapala Sutta, the fruits of the renunciant life. So after the Buddha answered him, he was quite satisfied with the Buddha's answer. And he thanked the Buddha and left. And after he left, the Buddha told his monk disciples, the Buddha said, "Look at this foolish man. To become the king, he killed his father, such a good, just man." And then the Buddha said, if he did not kill his father, tonight I could have taught him the Dhamma and he could have attained Dhamma Chakku, the vision of the Dhamma, that means become a stream enterer. So you see, such a person, because of creating evil karma, the mind is disturbed. And such a person, even if you were to teach him the Dhamma, he cannot have Yoniso Manasikara. The second condition for right view is proper attention, careful attention. As a person with a disturbed mind, he cannot keep the focus. He cannot focus his mind and listen. So you can see from here that sila is very important. If a person does not keep good sila, he cannot understand the Dhamma. He cannot focus his mind. And there are also other people like Devadatta. Devadatta, he was a disciple of the Buddha, a Sama Sambuddha, and he practiced until he had attained psychic powers. And yet, he did not attain right view. Why? Because of his mana, conceit, ego. He was an ambitious person. He wanted fame, he wanted name. And such a person, a conceited person, and he follows a teacher, and the teacher teaches him, gives him some instructions. He thinks he already knows. Such a person, when he's given instructions, he won't listen properly. There were other monks like this during the Buddha's time, and it's mentioned in the suttas. Buddha, for example, rebuked one monk. He said, I noticed much of the time when I taught the Dhamma, you were not paying attention. So if a person is not paying attention, and when the teacher teaches the Dhamma, how can he understand? So he cannot achieve right view. So Devadatta is another type of person who has a big ego and cannot listen to the Dhamma properly. Then there are other people when they come to a monk, either he's not interested to listen to the Dhamma, or when there's a Dhamma teaching, their mind wanders somewhere else, thinking of all kinds of worldly things because there's no interest. So not everybody, when you teach them the Dhamma, they can get right view. Only they have certain virtues. They are spiritually mature enough, the time has come, they are really interested, then only they can make progress. So basically this is what I have to say about right view. It's already quite a lot. Now, right view, why is right view so important? Because if you are going to walk a certain path, you have to be able to see clearly. Right? If you don't see clearly, you don't know where you're going. You're going to stumble, you're going to fall into a drain, knock your head against the pole or something. So you've got to have clear vision, that is right view, to see clearly where you're going. So when you have right view, then that will lead you to right thoughts. The way you think is also dependent on your view. So for example, people with wrong views, they can do all kinds of things. They can do atrocious things like kill people in the name of religion and all that. So, right thoughts, we come to right thoughts. Right thoughts in the suttas are said to have three things in it. Thoughts of loving kindness and benevolence towards all beings. Thoughts of harmlessness and compassion towards all beings. And thoughts, thirdly, thoughts of renunciation of worldly pleasures, because you understand that they can lead to pain and suffering. So, when you have right thoughts, you avoid the wrong thoughts of ill will or anger and harming others and greed. So once you have right view and right thoughts, you begin to counteract the three poisons of greed, hatred and delusion. So when you have right thoughts, it leads you to the third factor, which is right speech. Why does it lead you? Because before you speak, you must think, isn't it? You think first, you formulate the thoughts in your mind, then before it comes out, it breaks out into speech. So if when you have right thoughts, then it will lead you to right speech. There are four precepts, four factors in right speech. The first is to abstain from lying and cheating others. Musavada. And then the second is to abstain from malicious speech. Malicious speech is speech motivated by anger. There are two types. One is you hear A talking bad about B, you go and tell B, last night it said this and this about you, and you make the two of them quarrel. What we call in Bahasa Malaysia, batu api. So that is malicious speech, one type. Another type is to slander people. You don't like somebody, you see all the bad things about that person without any real evidence. Then the third is to abstain from coarse speech, vulgar language, speaking loudly and all that. And in other words, you speak gentle words. And the fourth is to abstain from frivolous gossip, wasting time. So the Buddha said that the well-spoken word has 5 factors. Firstly, is truthful. Secondly, is beneficial talk. Thirdly, is spoken gently. And fourthly, with the mind of loving kindness, motivated by love. And lastly, is timely. Why timely? Because sometimes, like when you give advice to somebody, if he's in a bad mood, don't give him advice, he's going to explode already. Wait until it's cooled down, and you advise him. So, we now come to the 4th factor, is right action. When you have right thoughts, then it gives you right speech as well as right action, because your actions are also based on your thinking. There are 3 factors here also. To abstain from killing. The second, to abstain from taking what is not given to you, stealing basically. And the third is to abstain from sexual misconduct, adultery. So these are 3 bodily evil karmas. You abstain from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. So that will bring you to the 5th, which is right livelihood. Right livelihood is to earn your livelihood in a way that does not harm others, does not injure others. And if you have right speech and right action, you don't harm others. So right livelihood is, there are no precepts in right livelihood. It is actually covered by right speech and right actions. But the Buddha mentioned 5 types of trade that a lay person should not engage in. One is to trade in human beings, slavery. Although slavery now is uncommon, you still have. Sometimes they catch young girls, they catch children. So sometimes they catch anybody to kill and steal their organs. And then the second one is not to breed animals, to sell or slaughter. And then the third is not to trade in weapons, because weapons kill, guns and all that. The fourth is not to trade in intoxicants, liquor, drugs, etc., because it harms a lot of people. And the fifth is not to trade in poisons, like insecticides, herbicides and all that, which can kill a lot of life. So the Buddha said wealth should be earned by legal means, without force or coercion, honestly, and without causing harm to other beings. So this is right livelihood. So that brings us to the 6th factor, which is right effort. Here we begin the cultivation of the mind. Right effort is to make effort to observe your mind. Observe your mind, and whatever unwholesome states arise, you try to get rid of it and to cultivate wholesome states. What are unwholesome states? Unwholesome states of mind are associated with greed, hatred, and delusion. For example, craving, attachment, ill will or anger, shamelessness, conceit, aversion, jealousy, stinginess, restlessness, laziness, etc. And then wholesome thoughts, wholesome states of mind associated with non-attachment, moral shame, mindfulness, loving kindness, tranquility, etc. So in this right effort, the Buddha said, when evil thoughts have arisen, you immediately discard it, try to get rid of it. and also to prevent the arising of unarisen evil thoughts. And thirdly, to develop unarisen good thoughts, wholesome states of mind. And if wholesome states of mind have arisen, then to promote it, to prolong it, to develop it. So that is right effort. This right effort means that we have to constantly look into our mind. A lot of people, if you don't know the Dharma, you don't know how to look into your own mind. Very often we find some of our friends have certain bad qualities, certain defects in their character. And sometimes when you try to advise that person to change because he has certain what we call maoping or bad, that person gets very angry. Why? This happens very often. Why? Because he does not see that defect in his own character. He does not admit, and also because he does not see it. Why does he not see it? Because he does not look inwards. A lot of people are like that. We always look at other people's fault. Very good at pointing out other people's fault, but we never see our own fault. So the spiritual path is not to look outwards, to look inwards, and develop yourself. So when you practice right effort, you start to look at your own faults and change. This is what the spiritual path is all about, to change your character. A lot of us now, we want to go to heaven, but some people, they have this delusion, they think by chanting the Buddha's name they can go to heaven. It's not that way. The Buddha says, if you want to go to heaven, you have to change your character. You want to become a deva, right now you've got to have the character of a deva. You want to become a devi, right now you have to be like a devi. And then it's guaranteed that when you close your eyes, you'll be born as a deva or devi. If at present you're acting like what you call gu cat, ngao ching, like an animal, you may delude yourself that you are on your way to heaven, and the moment you close your eyes, you're born as an animal, because that is your nature. So we change our character until we become like a deva or devi. And right now we already have become a deva and devi, so you're guaranteed that if you close your eyes, you will become a deva or devi. And then that leads us to the seventh factor, right recollection. Sometimes this word, sati, is translated as right mindfulness. But however, this word sati means to direct your mindfulness only to four things. These four things are your body, your feelings, your mind, and Dhamma. Dhamma refers to the Buddha's teachings, the suttas. So it is not general mindfulness, it is a specific mindfulness directed only to these four things. Must remember that. A lot of people, when they see the word mindfulness, they think, when I walk I have to be mindful, when I eat I have to be mindful. That when I see something, I have to be mindful. When I hear a sound, I note. That is not the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha's teachings is mindfulness directed only to four things, or specifically to four things. That's why a more proper translation is right recollection, directed only to these four things. Recalling only these four things. That's why it's called right recollection. There is another Pali word that is used for general mindfulness. And that Pali word is sampajanya. And the Buddha says that when we practice meditation, when we practice the spiritual path, we have to practice sati, sampajanya. These two words are separate, Sampajanya is general mindfulness. If you practice general mindfulness, it helps you to be in the here and now instead of your mind wandering all over the place. If you are in the here and now, then it's helpful to your practice of sati. Then only you are able to practice sati. So recollection is being mindful of the body, means the nature of the body. There are several methods that Buddha taught. One is the 32 parts of the body. When you chant the 32 parts of the body, you don't have to chant it in Pali. You can chant it in whatever language you want. For example, you can chant it in English. Head, hair, body, hair, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinew, bone, marrow, kidney, heart, liver, vitreous, spleen, lung, bowel, entrail, gorge, dung, brain, bowel, phlegm, etc. So there are two ways you can do this chanting. One is to chant it slowly. If you chant it slowly and then you contemplate one by one. And the other way is to chant fast. When you chant fast, it keeps your mind concentrated. It's a samatha practice. If you chant it slowly, you can consider it as a vipassana practice. So, and then also to contemplate on the various types of corpses that your body will turn into one day. And also the four elements that comprise your body, the four characteristics of your body, earth, fire, water, wind. And then secondly, to contemplate your feelings, arising and passing of your feelings. Feelings arise when there is contact at the six sense doors. When you see something, a feeling arises. When you hear a sound, feeling arises. When you smell, taste, touch and think, feeling arises. Generally these feelings arise and pass away very fast. But sometimes when we are attached to it, we cannot let go, then the feeling persists. For example, if somebody says something to you that you don't like, you get angry. And you get angry, you think about it, and you keep thinking about it, and that anger persists. Otherwise it should just go away. So, but the Buddha said there are two types of feelings, bodily feelings and mental feelings. Bodily feelings comes from bodily contact, and mental feelings come from mental contact. So, for example, somebody says something to you and you get angry. The sound that you hear is gives rise to a bodily feeling. But when you get angry and you start thinking about it again and again, then the mental feeling arises. So, if you keep thinking about this, what is unpleasant that you heard, then this dukkha, this anger, this dukkha persists. So at night when you go to sleep, you keep thinking about it, you cannot turn off this computer, you cannot sleep. So you have to suffer for it. The Buddha says there are two types of suffering, mental suffering and bodily suffering. The arya, a noble person, only has bodily dukkha, bodily pain. Bodily pain nobody can avoid, which means growing old, becoming sick and dying. But mental suffering, the arya does not have, because the arya understands the way the world works. Whatever happens, he accepts it. That's the way karma, vipaka is going, is turning. There's nothing you can do about it. You can only try to change the future. So, because the arya accepts things as they are in the world, so he does not proliferate, does not think so much, and so he does not have mental dukkha. The ordinary worldling has the bodily suffering as well as mental suffering, because he keeps thinking. So the more you think, the more suffering you have. And this thinking proliferation of mind is very hard to control unless you practice samatha meditation. When you practice samatha meditation, your mind becomes more and more still, and you find happiness in that stillness. Even if somebody says something that is a reason enough for you to get angry, you you don't want to get angry because you get upset. So if you have some strength of mind, at least you can control your emotions. If you don't have strength of mind, you cannot control your emotions. Your emotions control you, and then you suffer. So there's feelings. And then third, because we are mindful of the mental state. Wherever the thoughts and all that arise, you observe the state of your mind. When you observe the state of your mind, it's very important to ask yourself, what is your motive? Sometimes you think in a certain way, you ask yourself, what is your motive? Why do you think like that? Is it because of greed? Is it because of anger? Is it because of your ego? Then you understand yourself better. Then only you can change yourself. If you don't understand yourself, how can you change? So sometimes also your reaction, somebody says something to you and you feel in a certain way, then you ask yourself also, why am I angry? Then you realize most of the times you're angry because your ego cannot take it. When we are sincere in walking the spiritual path, sometimes we live with a good teacher. The good teacher will point out your faults. The Buddha said in the suttas that if you have a teacher that is willing to point out your faults, then don't leave him. Even if he chases you away, don't go away. Stay with him. It's very hard to find a teacher like that. But a lot of people cannot stand when the teacher criticizes the disciple. He cannot stand. What cannot stand is the ego that cannot stand. I know somebody recently, a lady, just renounced to become a nun, actually a close relative of mine. So she wrote me a letter. The first 6 months was a lot of suffering. She said she was in this strict monastery where very frequently she gets criticized. They are so strict, they are so fussy, you must do everything exactly the way they want. So you don't do exactly the way they want, they tell you off. So she wrote to me that many days her tears flowed. And there's one day when the tears flowed non-stop. That's because she had a good understanding of the Dharma. She knew it's just the ego that cannot stand. The ego getting a passion. And that's actually my own sister. So that's the state of the mind. Then the fourth one is to contemplate of Dharma. This contemplation of Dharma is the most important of the 4 contemplations. Why? Because the Buddha said in a certain sutta that there are 5 occasions when a person becomes liberated, becomes an arahant. One is when that person listens to the Dharma and becomes liberated. Another one is when that person is